What is this upland source control that DEQ is responsible to complete? Preventing recontamination means that DEQ must make sure contaminants from the land don't get into the river sediment again after EPA cleans it up. Controlling in-water risk means that even if land contaminants won't get into the river sediment, levels in the water itself must be low enough not to harm critters that live in the river or eat from it.
Source control is an effort to deal with contaminated sites along the Willamette River that have historically contributed pollution to the river. So you're trying to stop the flow of any contaminants that might come from stormwater when it rains or through groundwater, through the soils, into the Willamette River itself. And that's what DEQ's job is here in Portland Harbor. It makes very little sense to clean up contaminated sediments in the river if you have riverside areas that have the potential to pollute the river again. So DEQ's role is really serious in that respect, and they have been working in tandem with the US EPA to control the sources so that by the time a cleanup decision is made about what to do with 10 miles of contaminated sediment, that the notion of these sources being potential contaminants to the river again is something that we don't need to worry about.
The first step in source control was to look for upland sites that could be sources. DEQ was already actively working on 15 sites by the time Portland Harbor was listed as a Superfund site. As of 2014, DEQ has evaluated 170 sites for source control, implementing source control measures for one or more pathways at 119 sites. The next step was to evaluate the nature and extent of contamination and assign a priority based on level of threat. In Portland Harbor, DEQ identified the worst 14 sites as the highest priority, and about 40 more are medium priority, which leaves about 120 as lower priority. Finally, DEQ aims to eliminate or control the threat. This means removing the contamination, cutting off its pathway to the river, or taking other measures to keep people or the environment from getting exposed. While the work tends to take longer at the most complicated sites, DEQ has temporary, initial phase, or final solutions in place at most sites in Portland Harbor. Schedules are in place or under development to ensure that all high and medium priority sites are completed by the time of EPA's in-water cleanup. So how do we decide what's a threat? First, we look at how the contaminants at a site could get to the river. These contaminant transport pathways are complete when they connect a source at a harmful level to a receptor. The pathway is incomplete if it doesn't get to a receptor. If it gets there, but at a very low level, the pathway may be complete, but it's insignificant. As you can see, there are a number of different ways that contaminants on land can get to people, animals, or the river and the fish or other critters that live in or eat from the water. Historically, industrial waste and processing material was dumped directly into the river. This is an important historical pathway, but since direct dumping doesn't occur anymore, DEQ's focus for current source control is on 3 pathways: groundwater, soil and bank erosion, and stormwater. There can also be fuel spills from a dock or ship or air deposition onto the river's surface, but this is infrequent and mostly insignificant. So let's take a closer look at the 3 pathways DEQ is focusing on to control sources of contamination into the Willamette River.